Alright, today I'm going to show you how I clean a pistol, and there are many ways to clean a pistol, so lots of people are going to write out there and say no, you should do it this way or that way, and it's each to his own. If you can get the pistol clean, that's what's really important. So I've got a Sig Sauer P226 X5 lightweight, which currently is my favorite pistol. Shoots great. I know it's a little bit large, but I actually carry it concealed and it does fine. Has a great high capacity magazine. Just really runs great. So anyway, I'm going to walk you through sort of the cleaning process, and I'll just take it step by step and show you the way I like to clean a pistol. Maybe you'll learn something along the way. Maybe you'll at least come up with some ideas of new products and that sort of thing. So first things first, you want to gather all your supplies together in one location if you can. I'll just kind of walk you through my setup here. I've got a cleaning rod. I like to use a rod. This one's by Gunslick, but I like it better than like the Snakes or even the Otis type systems that use a little pulley type thing. I just like sort of a conventional rod. This is a nice one here. You're going to need some patches as well to clean the barrel. I like to use these jigs to push the patches through. I know other people use the little loop systems and pull it through, and that's fine. It works fine either way. I like the jigs. They just fit nice and tight in the barrel. And then of course you're going to need a set of brushes. This is a 9mm, so I've got a 9mm brush in here as well. That'll get your barrel clean for you. A few other things, you have to have a brush of some sort to scrub off some of the grime. This is just a little plastic brush. You can use a toothbrush, that's fine too. Every once in a while, it's nice to have some little plastic hooks, or it's not often that I use these, but every once in a while you'll get some crud, some carbon buildup. You can sort of scratch it off with the little hooks. Again, you want to use something that won't mar the finish of the weapon. You can use Q-tips or other small devices to get in and clean some of the crud out too. I've got some of these little foam tip applicators, which are great. Cotton tipped applicators are fine too. And then an assortment of products to do the cleaning. I'll just walk you around the particular products I use, and these change from time to time, so there's no one right answer. Usually you want something that, like a general purpose lubricant, cleaner, and protectant. In this case I've got the Slip 2000 EWL, that's that Extremes Weapon lubricant. There's other products that are very similar to this, CLP type products. And you'll read lots of things. Some people say some are better than others. I think they're all fairly similar, and they all do a really good job. You're going to need a good bore cleaner, some kind of more of a solvent. Of course, I use Hops 9. I just pour it in this bottle just because it's easier to distribute on things. But Hops is probably as good as any cleaner that you're going to find. I've tried many types, and this one does a great job cleaning. And it doesn't seem to damage anything, so it seems very safe. In terms of a real good lubricant, I like to use Miltech 1. This is the bigger bottle of it here. Real high quality. It does some molecular bonding and so forth, they say, as it heats up. But what I find is it goes on real smooth. It's a real nice just lubricant gun oil. You don't need a lot of it, so I use it in this real small applicator bottle here. And then sometimes you have to blow the dirt out. I like to use just a compressed air can. This is one by Gun Duster, Winchester's Gun Duster, which is fine, but any compressed air. Now some of them do have additives that you don't want to use because they'll end up fouling up the gun. This one doesn't have any additives. I think those additives are to prevent people from sniffing them and that sort of thing, but anyway, this one works great. I also like to keep just a little container that I can put some Hops number 9 in case I have to soak parts for a little while. It's just nice to be able to pour some in there and set it aside. Of course, you need some kind of rags to wipe everything down. I like to just use a good cloth rag, as well as I've got a nice box of some wipe-all, basically paper towels, a good quality paper towels. And then finally just some kind of cloth to wipe it all down with at the end. So that's sort of my setup. Yours is sure going to be different. But anyway, I'll walk you through my process next. Alright, so we get to cleaning here now. Again, this is a Sig P226 X5. One of the nice things about Sigs, I really like Sig Sauer, but one of the nice things about them is they're very easy to take apart. We've had a lot of different types, 1911s and other things, and Sig's probably the easiest of all the weapons to take apart. But you should know whatever type of weapon you have, you should be very familiar with how to take it apart and put it back together. And never take it further apart than you're comfortable with. And if you're ever experimenting, take some pictures before you get going. You know, it's always very stressful to put your gun back together and have an extra spring or something left over. Anyway, in this case, the Sig, like I said, is just very easy to take apart. It just slides basically straight apart like that. And then you have your lower half and your upper half here. Now, it's up to you how much cleaning and how regularly you want to do on the lower part here. I like to usually just use some Q-tips and a little CLP, a little lubricant. Clean it up good and get out any of the sand or other dirt that sort of collects over time, just because it gets kind of wet and that sort of sticks to it. So that's what I'll end up doing with this piece. In terms of the upper piece here, you just have to do a last little bit of disassembly. Have to remove the spring and have to remove the barrel. This one's nice, different than a lot of 1911s. You know, you don't have to use any of the little wrenches at the front to take off anything. So this one just lifts right out, and that's it. Really, you field stripped it. Really just the 4 pieces there. If you want to, you can pull the spring system apart and wipe down the spring. I usually do that as well. So anyway, gather your supplies. Next thing, field strip your weapon, and then I'll just walk you through how I clean it. Alright, so you can start anywhere you want in the cleaning process. I usually like to start with the barrel, and the way I like to do it is I take some of the hops number 9 and I put it on the bore brush, get it nice and wet, and you run it through the barrel. You always go in the direction of the bullet. You run it through a few times, get it nice and wet, and then you set the barrel aside and let some of the solvent work on the barrel for a little while you clean the rest of the pistol, and then we'll work on the barrel last and then reassemble it. So while I'm waiting for the solvent to work on the barrel, I'll go ahead and just wipe down the recoil spring. Just I'll use one of these Whitehall paper towels, and I generally just like to use a general CLP type lubricant on it. It tends to work real well, just to get your spring kind of lubricated. In this case, this is a brand new bottle. I'll go ahead and pop it open here. Just put a little bit on a paper towel. Just enough. Again, all you're trying to do is just wet this down. Now some of these springs have a direction where one side is doubled up and the other side's not. And usually the double up side goes up against the metal. So if you ever get confused and you've got it turned around, maybe that'll help you remember it. So just do a light wipe down on the spring, just in case you don't let any corrosion build up on it. In this case, same thing on the piston here. This thing can come apart. And I just put just a light wipe down on it here. It doesn't really get very dirty, but I like to keep everything lubricated and protected, and that's what the CLP type products are really good at, is just keeping a light layer of lubricant on things so that everything runs a little bit better. Put those back together and set that aside as well. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and work on the upper part here now, and you can see there's some carbon fouling in it. I did shoot about 400 rounds through this the other day. So again, I like to use the CLP on it, in this case that ELW Extreme Weapons lubricant, just as a little bit of a lubricant as I scrub it down. So I'll put a little bit on a paper towel here again, and I'll just kind of wipe it in there just to get some of it distributed. I don't like to do anything on a dry weapon. If you're going to clean it, it's just nice if everything's already kind of lubricated. You can wipe that lubricant off at the end, but I just don't like wiping down dry weapons. It's easy to scratch the weapons. And then to do the actual cleaning, I'll do some scrubbing with the brush. Now this particular brush has a thin end and sort of a regular conventional toothbrush end. And so again, I'll put some of this weapons lubricant on it, and then I'll just work on it. Work on the face here. You don't have to scrub the daylights out of it. You just really have to give it a little light once over. If you clean it regular, now if you let it build up, it can become a real pain, in which case you probably have to wipe it and let it sit a while. But I've kept this pistol fairly clean since I've had it, so nothing built up on it over a long period of time and hardened. So I'll wipe it down after I get done with a quick brushing. And again, you can tell any place that the carbon's building up, the powder turns it black as you fire it, and it can build up over time, so you just want to get all that wiped off. Alright, something like that. And I might go ahead and put a little bit on the other end as well. It lets me get into the rails here just a little bit again. Try to get it nice and lubricated. Most of the work, truthfully, most of the hard work is done by the chemicals. Your goal is to kind of distribute it and then help wipe it all off when you're done. And that's about all that takes. Now I could let this sit a few minutes before I wipe it down, and I would if it was especially dirty. But I think in this case I can just go ahead and wipe it out. I'll go ahead and pause the video while I get it all wiped out, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about the lower and the barrel. Okay, so I went ahead and cleaned the slide. I don't know if you can see it in the light here, but it's pretty clean. Mostly I just used basically a paper towel and wiped it out real good. As long as you use some of this CLP type product, it really wipes out well, especially on a stainless slide like this. Now, one thing I didn't point out earlier was, these Q-tips are really nice for getting down in some of the small spaces that the paper towel can't really get in there very well. And you can, along the inside lip of the slide are great for running the Q-tips and help getting out some of that grit. So it's really nice to have a supply of those on hand. But anyway, so you get done with the slide, get it where it's clean, you've scrubbed it and got it in good shape. I like to wipe down the outside as well with some of the CLP just to protect it more than anything else. It doesn't usually get very dirty. And then at the very end we'll do a final wipe down to make sure there's not too much lubricant on it. We'll set that aside. Alright, so now we'll go to the lower half here. I'm not going to do anything more than just this quick field strip, so I'm not going to take apart the trigger or safety or anything else. So all I'll do is I'll take some of this weapons lubricant again, some of this CLP type product, and I'll put some on a paper towel, and then I'll just wipe it down just like I did the slide. I'll wipe it down all around, sort of everywhere in the metal parts here, and get out any of the grit. And again, I'll go ahead and stop the video while I do that, and I'll just show you when I'm finished. Alright, so I've got it wiped down with just a paper towel and some of this lubricant protector on it. Just a couple of things here. The lower part here usually doesn't require a whole lot of time if you keep it wiped out regularly. You should exercise the safety when you're cleaning it. That way at least you can get up underneath it. Make sure you get a little bit of that lubricant underneath it. Lubricate on the safety itself. If you end up with sometimes when you go out shooting, you'll end up with like a dirty magazine. It'll fall in the dirt. You'll end up having to reload it. Maybe you're in a class or something. And you'll get some of that grit down in the magazine well. And a nice way to get that out is just with a little bit of compressed air. You can just sort of spray that out. It's a nice thing to have in your lab. In this case, this pistol's really clean. It hasn't been used like that. But still, it's a good way to get off some of the dust. And that's about it on the lower part, unless you were to take it apart further, and I'm not planning on doing that. Okay, so for the final step of cleaning, we'll go ahead and turn our attention to the barrel here now. Again, there's lots of ways to do this. I like to get all of the scrubbing done before I run the patches down the barrel. That way I'm not just pushing more dirt down into the barrel as I clean it. So again, you can use a little bit of the general lubricant here on a paper towel and just wipe down the barrel real good. The outside of the barrel usually is not too hard to get clean. Sometimes at the very front of the barrel you'll get some buildup. You'll have to do some scrubbing with the brush, and I do encourage you to do that because over time it will build up and become harder and harder to remove. It's just always good to take care of it each and every time you clean your pistol. So you wipe it down good, especially the feed ramp here. You want that to be not have any buildup whatsoever. And you can use your Q-tips to get all the last little bit out. Again, we've let it sit with some of the number 9 on it, so anything inside the barrel will wipe out pretty quick and easy. So you get it pretty clean, just so you're not pushing the dirt down in it. And then we'll run the patch a few times, and then we'll come back and wipe the barrel again to get all the last little bit off. Alright, so in terms of the patch, again, you can do it with either the little hook and loops. I use these little jigs, but you're going to put a patch on it, and you're going to push down the barrel. Now, you certainly can put a little bit of CLP on it. It's already still a little bit wet from the hops, but you can put a little CLP on it, and then you can push it. And you see this one's got quite a bit, but that's good, we're getting it out. And you just run several patches through it until the patch comes out pretty clean. You can tell the second one's already quite a bit cleaner than the first one was. So I'll go ahead and run a few more patches, and then I'll start back up the video. Alright, so I finished running the patches through it, and I ended up using, I guess, about 8 patches or so. Now, the one thing I will say is I like to use these general lubricant protectants as I clean the barrel, but for the very last patch, maybe the last couple of patches, I use a dry patch. That takes away any of that last little bit. You don't want any buildup of lubricant inside the barrel itself. So you want to make sure that it's actually fairly dry inside the barrel. But once you get done doing that, then we'll go ahead and get a fresh paper towel, and we'll wipe down the barrel. It's still got a little bit of the lubricant on it, but I'll put just a little bit more and just rub it around. We're going to go ahead and get it nice and clean. And we'll wipe it down with this. Again, paying special attention here to the feed area. We want the feed ramp to really be nice and shiny, no buildup whatsoever. And you will get a little bit of wear, of course, as the firearms run, but that's different than the buildup of the carbon and the other gunpowder products. So when you get all done, you wipe it down good. Again, you don't want your weapon to be too wet when you finish. It's nice for it to be wet while you clean it, but not when it's all finished. And you set that aside. Pretty happy, that looks pretty good. Get rid of some of our junk. And so we essentially got it all cleaned now. Now we would like to apply a little bit of lubricant, and I'll walk you through that process next. There are lots of different theories on what should be lubricated. I often hear, that you should use grease on anything that slides and an oil on anything that moves, like everything that rotates and so forth. But I found that you really, for most weapons anyway, you really don't need a grease. A good general purpose lubricant does fine, and it prevents some problems, especially when shooting lighter recoil pistols like a 9mm. This isn't a 1911, but it's similar in style. It's a single action only pistol. And what you find is if you use a grease sometimes on the slide, on 1911 style pistols, in particular 9mm, it provides a little bit more friction as the weapon fires back and forth, especially when it's new, and that can cause some failure to ejects and other problems with the pistol. So I always just say, stick with a good, really lightweight lubricant, and you won't go wrong. It may not stay on as long as a grease, but it tends to do just fine. Now I like for the lubricant, and I'm not talking about the general cleaner lubricant, but really just purely a lubricant. I like this Miltech 1, and I put it in this little small applicator bottle. It doesn't require much at all, but basically you want to lubricate everything that shows signs of wear, and then of course the slides where you know things are going to be moving. But it doesn't require much. Usually I put a drop at each end of the slide, and when I put it back together, I'll work the slide a couple times, and that's enough. Anywhere there's wear, tells you that things are moving. I like to rub just a little bit of that on with my finger, like so, along the top of it, the slide as well. anything that you can tell that there's some kind of wear occurring because the metal is going to be rubbing against metal, you want to have some kind of lubricating layer there. But again, it doesn't require a lot. I'm not a big advocate of putting lots and lots of lubricant on a weapon and running it real wet. Some 1911s, I guess, run better that way, but I personally don't think that's a great way to run your firearm because it collects a lot of dirt. So that's the lower half. In terms of the upper half, again, I like to put just a drop on each end of the slide. Like so. You can rub, you can tell there's a little bit of wear at different places. And again, what I do is I just put just a drop and I just rub it with the finger to get it sort of smeared out. Again, all I'm after is just a real light coating of lubricant here. And that's really about it for the field stripping on the upper. There's not a lot of lubrication needed there. In terms of the barrel, we've already wiped it down with a general purpose lubricant, and that's fine. If you wanted to put a drop or two of this Miltech on it, you can. You can wipe the outside of the barrel with it. I don't put a lot of anything on the feed ramp. Usually just that general lubricant is plenty. When I wipe that down, it tends to work fine. Again, we've already wiped down the spring. The recoil spring is fine. We don't need to do anything else to it. And so really that's it as far as lubrication. Now, you can, if you take apart the trigger and the safety assembly, you can lubricate those parts, but for the field stripping, it's not necessary. Now that we've got everything cleaned and lubricated, we're just going to put it all back together. We do that just following reverse order. Once again, you have to be familiar with your particular firearm. All of them go together a little bit differently. One of the things, unless you clean and take your pistol apart and put it back together regularly, sometimes it's easy to forget how it all goes together, and you can fumble and maybe even put it together in some way that the safety doesn't work or in some way that it's unsafe. So I do recommend either consult the web and follow along, somebody who's an expert, or you can always consult your user's manual if you're not familiar with your particular pistol. And in the case of the Sig Sauer, as I mentioned, the P226 is just a very easy firearm to deal with. It just basically has a single mechanism that you can throw and it goes right back together, which is one reason I really like it. So once you put the pistol back together, of course it's important to cycle the slide several times to get that lubricant, that Miltech 1 that I put on. I want to slide, and I can feel it lubricating. It really slides easy. You want to check your safety mechanisms, make sure the thing will go safe, and everything works as it's supposed to. Before you put it back away in your safe or start, carrying it, load it and carry it again, you want to make sure that everything functions just right. In this case, like I said, it's very easy to make sure of everything just functions really easily. Now the last step I like to do is I wipe it down. You can use a paper towel. I just got a little cotton cloth. I like to get all of the extra lubricant off of it if I'm going to carry it. Now if I'm going to store it in my safe, I'll leave that lubricant on, and then I'll wipe it off before I take it out to the range and shoot it. But again, believe it or not, this is my daily carry right now, so I don't like it to have a lot of extra lubricant. It just makes it more likely that my hands will slip and I'll fumble a draw, or I'll drop it, or something else. And so there's no real need to have a big bunch of lubricant on it, so I'll just do a quick wipe down of it. It feels great. Still protected, but not slippery. You get done with that, and it's ready to go. That's sort of the process I follow as I clean. Now again, everybody's process is a little bit different. You may use different chemicals, different instruments, and all that's fine. What I wanted to do is just show you a particular method that I use in case you're new to firearms or you just like to see how another person cleans their weapon. Alright, thanks for your time.